listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome.
Good morning. It's great to know that you're out there today. You know, this is always the day that I look forward to each week so that I can sit down and talk with you and share fabulous people. They bring, each one that comes to the show brings their own unique talents and some of the lessons they've learned along their life. So I think you're going to love today's show because it's another special person. Actually, we met years ago. So I'm looking forward to this guest. Now, today's guest believes it's not how many people you know or talk to, it's the quality of your conversations and connections that makes a difference to your network, success, health, and happiness. She's the author of an award-winning success guide, The Intentional Networker, Attracting Powerful Relationships, Referrals, and Results in Business. But we can also take these in our social life. Now, she also just released another book called More Than Just Talk, the essential guide for anyone who wants to enjoy better conversations. And I'm for that. Now, she's a Texan, so she lives not too far away in Austin, but I think she travels a lot because she is a speaker and a motivational teacher, a many talented woman. So let's welcome Patti DeNucci. Welcome.
Good morning, Joyce.
How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. It's a great day here in Austin, and the lawn service has left, so there's no background noise.
I know. Isn't it amazing how they always show up? Yeah. Well, you and I met at a workshop, and I was at Marsha Weeder's workshop.
One of them, yeah.
Yes. And I think it was like, when? How many?
Probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, and just before the show, we were talking about how she's reconnected with her at different places in the world. She's moved to abroad. And so anyway, it's really kind of fun if you were on this track that she and I have been on, where we go to workshops and we come home and we just keep creating ourselves. But how did you get, I know at that time you had written The Intentional Networker.
Yes.
And it was fairly new, I'm thinking.
Yeah, so that had to have been around 2011, 2012. It came out. Yeah, that was my empty nest project.
Oh,
yeah, and my son was, getting ready to graduate and college, and I just had a lot to say. I had a lot of things I wanted to share with people on mostly on entrepreneurial success, but it really turned into a networking book and how to network better rather than more.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people think if you're going to network, you have to be out all the time flipping business cards around and talking to everybody and shaking lots of hands and driving yourself crazy. And I'm not about that. I'm an ambivert, which means I'm half introvert, half extrovert. So when I go out and meet with people, I really want to enjoy myself and feel energized as opposed to feeling drained.
I can remember in going to networking events through the chamber in Tyler, Texas, and you always went there with kind of this I went there, let's say, with an attitude kind of, I'm easy to talk to, but to direct my conversation around my business, which is what I thought networking was all about, kind of just tightened me up. My carefree kind of social person disappeared.
And I think that's why I wrote my second book on conversation, because people like you are still asking me questions about, okay, now I know how to be a better networker and how to, add in that professionalism and, the do's and don'ts. And people were still asking me questions about, but the conversation piece, which is the most important piece, the connecting with a fellow human as opposed to just
Mhm.
another business person. I'm struggling with that. And so that's why I've spent the last 8 years working on this, because conversation is what connects all of us, no matter what we do.
Right.
And
Yeah.
ever since I started working on this book, I started meeting more interesting people, or maybe they just seemed more, I knew how to get the interesting part out. I think that's part of
Right.
it. I had some better skills, and I learned that almost anybody can be an interesting conversation partner. It's
Mhm.
all about the questions that you ask
Mhm.
and how you manage the conversation. And we all are in charge of managing our own conversations. That's another big
Mhm.
aha
Mhm.
moment for me, because we're in charge. If you're not liking your conversations, it's partially your responsibility.
Yeah. So, my dear listeners, don't just think this is all about business talk and making conversations that way, because I have a little story to tell you. I was at a event, it was a social event. Um, I can't remember which one, but anyway, we don't lack for them for those in any place, in any community. But anyway, I was standing there. It was very early, and there was this other early bird there. And I know I was trying to create conversation, and she kept saying, yes, no, yes, no. And I was struggling just to think of something to engage her, because she wasn't forthcoming with her comments.
That's a lot of work, isn't it?
Yes, I was
And that's,
exhausted.
I think, where the draining thing comes in.
Uh-huh.
Shall I comment on that?
Yes, please do.
Well, I think part of it is I'm learning to not ask yes and no questions, to ask something where they can't just answer yes or no. Like a question I like to
Yeah.
ask when I'm at an event, and I like to be an early bird, because it kind of helps me get into the buildup of the event. I'm not walking into a room that's already loud and people are already engaged, and I have to somehow break into somebody else's conversation. So I think
Mhm.
getting there early was a good thing on your part.
Right.
I think you might have asked something like, so what brought you here today?
Mhm. Mhm.
What do you know about the speaker? What do you know about the organization? Or it's hard. And I have to, even as I'm sitting here thinking of questions to ask, I'm having to move away from the questions that she could have answered with yes or no. So the
Right.
questions, and what's great about my book is I have an entire appendix in the back of questions you can ask at different kinds of events, which I think
Yes.
is part of the secret is the questions. And then on her part, oh, I don't know why she would just answer yes and no and not elaborate, because you go to a social event to be social. So on her part, she was making you work awfully hard, and I don't feel like that was good manners on her part. And she might say, well, I'm shy or I'm introverted.
Uh-huh.
And yes, those things are real, but
Mhm.
we fill in the blanks on those. Like for you,
Mhm.
you've probably felt like, well, she's not being very friendly to me. And I think that would make me
Mhm.
feel bad.
Mhm. Right. Well, conversation ended
I bet.
quickly. I moved on. I spied another woman, and moved on to her, and we had a successful exchange
And
of
you were entitled
conversation.
to do that. That's the other
Mhm.
thing. I don't think we need to stay in unpleasant conversations any longer than a few minutes, because that's
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm curious in how you created your world. In other words, why did you? I know you had that book, Intentional Networker, but what was the reason for going in that direction? Was it speech? Was it what
great
did you?
question. That's a great, how did you how you created your world? That is like a really great question. Wow. Okay, everybody, all the listeners should write that one down, because that is really awesome.
Oh, good.
Created my world. I think with every, in the back in the day, back in the early 2000s, we had the 2001.com bust. And
Mhm.
I was a marketing communications writer, and I had a lot
Oh,
of
okay.
clients who disappeared. And
Mhm.
then after that, I started a freelance talent bureau where things were kind of picking back up. And I kind of acted as an agent to freelancers who wanted work,
Oh.
a go between the clients. And I did that. And then in 2008, things collapsed again. And again, my son was going to be graduating from high school in 2010. So I thought, I don't have anything better to do. I have all this material that I've been talking about writing a book. So I wrote The Intentional Networker with the help of a publishing strategist who helped me through the process, which was a fantastic experience. And then I started speaking professionally because books don't make the money. It's really taking the books on the road and speaking about them. So that's probably why I went to one of the workshops where I met you. And then, you don't just stop at one book. You discover that, oh my gosh, there's more to say. There's more to this. And I found that I was really enjoying speaking to groups and coaching and doing workshops that were all about how can we be better conversationalists? How can we connect? Because conversation and connection that's the number one key to success. I mean, you have to have skills in other areas too, but you are far more likely not to get laid off from your job if the company sees you as someone who can talk to anyone about anything. It's just a really valuable foundational skill. And there's so many, gosh, I can't reach the article because it's over there in another part of my office, but there's a study out of Harvard that's been going on for 85 years on what is the number one key to success and happiness and health and living a long, vibrant life, which I know you and I are. And it's relationships. It's meeting people, talking to people, and having social relationships. So I feel like I'm on something, and it feels like important work to me.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely an area that I think many people struggle with. They grew up in a family that didn't have communication. We didn't have much communication in my family, certainly not for negotiating if in a marriage or something like that. There was none of that. So, thus, I'm divorced because I couldn't negotiate.
Well, I think it's even more than that. I think a lot of people grow up without social skills, and they just accept that this is the way I am. Okay. I would just say shyness and introversion are two different things. Shyness is you're just very uncomfortable being around people and talking to people. You're uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Introversion means that you get your battery charged in solitude or in quiet settings. So it's about battery charging. It's about energy. And a lot of people are shy and introverted. And what many people don't get is your social intelligence. In other words, your comfort level, speaking to other people, being around other people, reading other people, gauging their mood, being able to bounce off of them a conversation. That's called your social intelligence. And you can improve your social intelligence. And a lot of people don't know that. And so they give up and they say, well, I'm just shy. So therefore I'm shy and I don't want to I don't want to be social. And they leave it at that. And that's like saying, that'd be like me saying I'm bad at math, therefore I can't be held responsible for balancing my checkbook.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, life doesn't let you be that way. So I'm trying to help people to see that it doesn't mean you're going to be a social butterfly. Nobody wants to change your personality, but how can we make this better for you?
So if one was trying to start self-improvement with speaking and so forth, just conversations, breaking into the conversation, social world, which book would you say is more appropriate as book number one?
I think the new book is book number. I call this the prequel to my other book because it's the very basic. I mean, and a lot of people don't like the term networking. They just don't like it. It's and that it sounds like it's more about business. And just talk. The new book is more about life. It's more about why are we having a hard time with this? Why should we be motivated to get better at it? And there's some really compelling evidence that says you will live a longer, more vibrant, healthier life. You'll have a better chance of surviving a serious illness like cancer. If you have friends around you and you feel like you're socially supported, you're going to do better in your job. You're probably going to do better in your relationships. You'll just be happier. I mean, And I'm
Mhm.
sure there are exceptions. There are people that just
Right.
need.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something really dysfunctional that must have happened somewhere along someone's life. I was very lucky in that I had really good social role models. My dad was an extrovert, my mom was more introverted, but they were both good social role models.
Uh, yeah.
And they led us by example on
Yeah.
how to treat people. Like you greet somebody when you are within 10 feet of a neighbor, you don't ignore them, you acknowledge their presence. You say, good morning. Good morning, Bob. How's it going? Doesn't have to be any more than that if you don't have time, but
Yeah.
we acknowledge each other's presence.
Yeah. I walk every morning because I have a dog and she's
Oh,
wonderful, but
walking away.
we cannot disappoint our animals.
No, we can't.
So we always give the hi, or we say good morning or something like that, no matter who it is. I mean, never see these people again, but I do the social thing and they respond.
Yeah,
So it starts the day off pretty good.
it does. I just did that this morning. I don't have a dog anymore. My dog passed away last year, but
Oh,
and it's I tell you what, it's easier to get motivated when you have a dog staring at you.
oh yes.
And they're not going to relent until you take them for the walk. But no, I mean, going through the pandemic and all of that, if it wasn't for my morning walk and seeing neighbors and waving at them and, talking from across the street and just seeing how everybody was doing it. I actually
Mhm.
met some neighbors I wouldn't have known otherwise.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a strange time.
Strange time.
So what is better conversations? You refer to better. What
Mhm.
exactly is a better conversation?
The definition of a better conversation is going to vary from person to person. And that's one reason why I let the reader of my book give that some thought. Like
Uh-huh.
you and I might really enjoy a conversation one-on-one over a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, something where we touch on lots of topics and just
Mhm.
solve all the world's problems. And
Mhm.
other people might like being at a lively party where they're getting into some civil, which is very rare, civil debate on the issues of the day, which I think is getting harder.
Yes. Yeah, the debate part is going out the window.
People used to do this all the time. People used to
Mhm.
have lively debates. Some people like loud party settings where you can just flit around and talk to lots of people. Other people want to eat over a good meal. Like, what is that? What is better conversation? I do know this. I do know that the most fascinating, intriguing, and attractive conversation skill is listening.
Ah,
It's listening,
yes.
which is harder than talking.
Mhm. Have you ever been in a room of women? Well, yeah, I know you have.
Of course,
But
I
we
have
were sitting, yes,
to.
that was not erase that. Okay. Yesterday we gathered, there were 8 women. Some I knew better than others. But we went swimming with this. We went to a house that had a swimming pool. Heaven forbid I should get in that bathing suit again. But everybody was same age, everybody looked the same. So it was a great day.
It is what it is.
But yeah, so we were sitting and eating the food that everybody had brought. And it's like I got to a part when you have that many women, 8 women, you've got a lot of gaggling
going on.
yes. And the subjects just float from one to the next. And there's lots of judgment. There's lots of this and negative talk. There's a point when I really have had enough.
Mhm.
I have to get up and walk away.
Mhm.
And I'll make some excuse. And I'm always the first one. But I
Mhm.
wouldn't call myself an introvert. What's happening?
Well, I think it's interesting you mentioned that scenario because we were at a restaurant one night. My boyfriend Mark and I were at a restaurant, and the table next to us was about that many women getting together. It seemed like they all lived in the same neighborhood and they were getting together. And we were kind of listening in a little bit. And it was the same thing. And it's like, well, first of all, everybody's talking at once. They're jumping around from topic to topic, and there's a lot of gossip and judgment. And I'm thinking, wow. And this happens. And I think what I would love any group, any men, women, whoever, to stop and think about why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about other people? Sometimes a group of 8 is too many. Have you ever noticed that when you're in a group of that many, like 2 people might just turn to each other and start their own conversation, or 3 or 4 people might the room kind of automatically starts moving into smaller clumps. It's an interesting phenomenon to watch that. But that many people all together, all talking and not really choosing very carefully what they're talking about. I mean, I think that's something we need to start being aware of. How much are we talking? What are we talking about? And is what we're talking about meaningful, or are we just gossiping?
That was gossiping.
It's gossiping. And there's that whole thing from Steel Magnolias, the line, if you don't have anything nice to say, come sit by me. And I used to think that was just hilarious.
Yeah.
But I also see that that's not really productive, enriching. It certainly is juicy, but not really productive or meaningful.
Yeah. We were talking about Princess Di.
Oh, yes.
I mean, how far back can we go?
Yeah.
Yes. Now you travel a lot, I would think, through your speaking. And so what does your life look like?
Oh, what does my life look like? Well, I don't travel a lot, as much as a lot of other speakers do. Some speakers are on the road all weekend, they come home on weekends. I don't want to live that way. I would say I love to travel once or twice a month for speaking. Often we tie in a leisure trip onto one of those trips. Like, for example, you've heard of the clothing line Cabby? Do you have a Cabby person in Tyler? It's a clothing
Cabby
that you do shows in women's homes.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had Cabby clothing in my closet for years. And they called me and had me go to a workshop for their top salespeople at this retreat that they did as a reward for their makers, is what they call them. And so that was in the Rancho Palo Verdes Peninsula at a beautiful resort outside of LA.
Mm-hmm.
And that was awesome. But then when it was over, my boyfriend flew out and we did a little California wine.
Nice.
Trip.
Yeah.
So anyway, so my life, I try to make my life as meaningful and enjoyable as I can, because the traveling for speaking can be really rough. It can be like, not only are you traveling, but now you have to be on in 150% on what you do. The rest of the time I'm doing podcasts like this. I'm writing, I'm doing my blogs. I am not working on another book right now, but by God, the idea is doing this. I'm promoting the current book. I go to the gym, I go for a walk. I mean, I try to have a day that is balanced and taking care of me, because I'm older now. I'm 64, and self-care, as you know, I mean, you just have to spend more time on it.
Right. You have to go to the gym now.
I have to. That's right.
Absolutely.
Not just about weight, it's about keeping the muscle mass on and all that.
Yeah.
So I try to, I really did sit down and think about, what does my ideal day look like? And I do that. And then I'm painting again. I'm painting.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. In fact, my new book, the background is one of my little abstracts. My book designer was all on board with me using some of my art on the cover. So I'm trying to grab all the juiciness out of life that I can. Right now, as I'm sure a lot of your listeners are,
I love to hear when women begin something again.
Yes.
That's definitely from
or try something new.
Julia Cameron.
Or try something new, or fall in love again, or I think it's amazing. Like my book editor, Susan Pretty, who's a dear friend, her mom is in her 80s. And when I hear about her mom's daily life, it's like, she is really making the most of every day. That's so inspiring.
When you go to speak, are you doing, because I know you did Rodan and Fields as well, didn't you? Rodan and Fields, is that right? Twice, yes. That's on your website. Some of the pictures on your website. You have a wonderful website.
Oh, thank you. That's a wonderful friend who does my website. Yeah. I love working with friends, by the way. I know people say, don't business and pleasure. I'm sorry. my people are my friends.
Right. Yeah. But there's so much information there just to print off. You do writing articles,
Yeah.
and then you have 7 steps to this and 7 steps. I printed every one of those.
Oh my
I'm
God.
such a printer. I love my printer.
I do too.
And-
I do love my printer. Many trees died when I was writing my book. Many trees. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to go plant like, a whole field of trees.
I know, but I really do encourage listeners out there to go to her website. What is your website?
Well, you can go to
tell
two
them?
ways. The easiest way, I think, for this is to go to Patti with an I, Patti, DeNucci, DENUCCI.com, and that'll take you there. Intentionalnetworker.com will also take you there. And I would encourage people to just go visit, because you will get a little pop-up, which overall I find pop-ups annoying, but in this case, I'm popping up because if you sign in, you have access to a lot of free resources, including free chapters from my book, the appendix with all those conversation starting questions,
Mm-hmm.
and it's some intention setting worksheets, and just all kinds of things that I think are really useful. And I'm here to serve. That's my key motivator, is I'm here to just make my little impact on the world and try to help people understand the art and science behind conversation. And
Now, how many workshops do you do?
oh my gosh. Well, what I did for Cabby was definitely a workshop. I have not started doing my independent workshops yet, but given that I am so enamored with controlling my own schedule and not getting on too many planes, I would love to be doing some virtual workshops, and then to also do some live ones. And I also am going to ramp up my conversation salons again, which that's where I invite, I could have as many as 20 women in my home. We have enough conversation spaces for that. That gets to be a little much. But I invite women to my home. We have a little networking.
That's nice.
Time with some wine and some snacks. And then I put people in groups of 4, and I give them a topic to talk about, and a few guidelines, like, monitor how much you're speaking versus listening, ask thoughtful questions, listen respectfully. We have a few guidelines, and in fact, I just thought of what my first one is going to be, and we're going to talk about change. We're going to talk about what changes are you going through, which is like, well, there's a loaded topic. Everything's changing. And then how are you going to embrace it and manage it? So that was the big inspiration that came on my walk this morning. So I'll probably get one of those on the schedule, but I do charge for it. I charge to attend. It's facilitated. We're using my home as a space of learning and a space of sharing. Highly curated guest lists where, if you came to one of these and you didn't follow the rules, you don't get invited back. Your name on the list.
Right. Oh. I'm curious as to who would have inspired you. We all have those people that we kind of put up on a pedestal. We admire their work. Something about their work has appealed to us. So who would that be in your past?
There are so many. I could go way back to my 10th grade English teacher just firmly believed I should be a writer. He said, you're a gifted writer. And my high school art teacher also, who I saw at my 40-year reunion a few years ago, he said, you're painting, right? And I said, oh. And he said, right, you're very talented. You need to not waste that. And that got me going again. So that was great. But I could also say, earlier we talked about Julia Cameron. I mean, I don't know her personally, but I've read several of her books. Brene Brown, obviously. I actually met Brene Brown at a funeral.
Really?
Yes, here in
Wow.
Austin, a few months ago. It was like, wow, that's Brene. Brene Brown is sitting in the pew like 2 rows up from me. And so at the whole time I'm, calculating how am I going to have a quick conversation with her, which I did.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I would say, there's so many people to be inspired by. You can go on you can go look at any TED or TEDx talk. Marcia, certainly, who was a teacher to both of us. Leader, and I'm almost, I don't know, sometimes my own son.
How old is he?
He's now and he's married. Just got married.
Babies?
Love my new daughter-in-law so much, but he he is a kid, he played college football and he surpassed all my expectations in pretty much every area. And he now works for his dad's construction company, and he's probably going to take the company over. And he has just become such an amazing young man who's been through some really challenging times. He has done some things that were very courageous and heroic. And I look to him all the time for inspiration. And he tells me I inspire him. So we have this amazing relationship. It's really nice.
Nice.
Anybody, I mean, I see some person at the gym who looks like they're in their 90s and they're still at the gym, and I'm like, that's inspiring. Yeah, so we have inspiration and that's why I think having conversations with people who we don't think are going to be very interesting, or we won't have anything in common with them, if you ask the right questions, you can get some wisdom from them.
Yes. Yeah. I was after COVID, and I was single, am single, and my dog had died 6 months before. So this house got pretty lonely. And I watched The Outlanders all the time. What a wonderful series.
It is.
So after I'd watched it about 6 times, all of it, I just got up and said, I'm going to go to Scotland. So I went into my computer and I Googled trips to the Plaids in Scotland. And so I ended up putting a deposit, which was $50, to go with this group, a geographic book group, to Scotland. And then they sent out the information as the trip was getting closer. And they said, we're going to stop and climb this. It was a mountain, but it was a gentle mountain. Okay. It's one of those. It was featured in this series as where the British would hide, that vertical rock. And so anyway, I thought to myself, I can't climb up that mountain. I'm physically not physical enough to be able to climb that mountain. And that got me back to the gym.
Oh yeah.
And I've never left.
Yes.
It's so.
I know. I mean, that's another reason to go out walking. I mean, that definitely inspires me. We were watching a show about Yosemite. We went to Yosemite during COVID when nobody was there.
Oh, what a great time.
Really great hiking. And that was the summer of 2020. That's 3 years ago. And I feel like I've kind of drifted, like I need to get motivated again. And we were watching some shows on some of the other national parks, because we do. But you have to be ready to hike. I mean, you have to be, because you're not just walking, you're like, we're traversing around rocks, and you're going up, and then coming down can be difficult and challenging too. Yeah, that's my motivation too, is I want to be able, or to walk everywhere. When we went to Paris, gosh, in 2019, we walked probably 12 miles a day, because we just
best way to get around in the city.
Live life and be active and be around other people and do things. Just get to the gym.
Well, if a listener is really loving what we're saying here today, how could they connect with you, or what would be your suggestion for them if they're interested in doing more work with you? How would you suggest they connect?
Definitely go to my website and sign in, because you'll start getting my blogs, which I do once a week. And you can go back on any of my previous blogs and look and see what I cover. I think I got more disciplined about doing it once a week. Once my new book was out, because otherwise all my writing mojo is going to book. That'd be a great way. I'm on LinkedIn, Patti DeNucci. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter still, but I've deactivated and then reactivated my account probably 5 or 6 times. That's not my favorite platform right now. And it's just there's too much ugliness on there for me.
Right.
But, Facebook. I have an intentional networker page on Facebook. You can just like that. And I also have a regular Facebook page. And I don't think I've exceeded my limit yet. So if you're on my list for my blog, you will hear about, like, if I'm going to do a virtual community, if I'm going to do a virtual workshop, if you're in the Austin area and you're interested in some of my live events, my in-person events, you can learn more about that. So
that sounds great. I know that we shared with you that now we're coming to the end of our show. So and that you might be told about this. And it's from the book, It's Never Too Late, the Julia Cameron book, Never Too Late to Begin Again. And she discusses on one of her chapters the word joy. And I became so enamored with the word joy because I had experienced, for me, really joy while standing in my room in Scotland. So anyway, are you ready?
Yes.
To put input about this question of joy. So the first thing I'd like for you to do, because we can remember those moments of joy because they're such treasures. So could you share with us one moment of joy that you experienced?
I can, and it's a very profound moment. I have lots of moments of joy, I have to say, but I remember, oh gosh, probably how many years ago? 10 years or so ago, I was going through a divorce, separated, and I was sitting out on my back deck, which looks over a little wooded, the remainder of my lot behind my yard, behind the fence is wooded, and there's birds. And I was just sitting out there with my cup of coffee. And, it had been a really hard, wrenching time, sad, all those things that go through. But I sat there and the birds were singing, and this was a beautiful day. And as I just sat there, I all of a sudden realized I am feeling joy, right? I'm feeling joy. I'm feeling like I have a future. There's a lot. The future is going to be bright. I have a lot of great things going on. I have a lot of great friends. I have so much to be thankful for. I have this house. I have blah, blah, blah. And I felt joy for the first time in a long, true joy, not just, but a deep-seated joy. And I can't explain, I can't explain where that came from, but I do know I had to be really still to feel it. And it was just wash of, look at all the great things. Like, yes, that was really hard, but you're through it. And now look at all these great things. And it was quickly followed by gratitude.
Right. Yeah. Very good. Thanks. Now, the other question that I would ask is, could you give 3 tips to somebody so that they could join the joy world that we're speaking of?
Join the joy world. Okay. And these are probably, at least one of them is going to be related to conversation, if not all of them. There's this thing that I learned. It's called assume positive rapport. Assume positive rapport. In other words, assume that when you talk to somebody, they're going to like you. And when we get all up in our heads and we start worrying about, oh my gosh, what do I look like? What do I sound like? Are they going to like me? I'm too old. I'm too young. Oh, if someone doesn't like you, it's really their problem. So assume
Yeah.
That takes off so much pressure. Okay, so that's one. Another one is, I think we talked about it earlier, acknowledge people in your presence, and don't just say hi or hey or what's up. Because I don't think that's in their lingo. But acknowledge people, like when you're at the grocery store or you're at the dry cleaner or you're buying a cup of coffee or the waitress. Look them in the eye and say good morning, and call them by, if they have a name tag on, good morning, Mary. How's your day going? Get connected, because what this does, it not only makes everybody, it's polite, but you're going to get a little oxytocin burst, which is our tend to befriend hormone, and they are too. And it's just our little way of it's our little rays of sunshine. So acknowledge people, be friendly, and listen more. I think listen more. I think sometimes as we get older, our personal editor goes away and we start just rambling and saying things like, let's just be calm and let's listen.
Right. Very good. All right. 3 really good suggestions. So I hope you took those down so that you can kind of review. Sometimes we need that review time when we're quiet and can listen and think about what we need to do. So I'm going to say just a few words to my listeners, and then we'll get back on the line and say our goodbyes.
Okay.
So anyway, I did deliver today, didn't I? This has been a great show. There's so much potential that you have that you can grow with and share with a friend that's needing some help in getting through her day today. She's maybe experiencing some really sad times. But Patti DeNucci can offer you some answers, some help, so that you can go over and have that conversation. Be caring friend that can take her through her sadness. And then you, what about you? Oh my, we've learned a new way, but I do encourage you to go to her website because she has great information there. I printed all morning long, so I love it too. So anyway, thank you for being here today. I really enjoy knowing that you're out there, and I look forward to seeing you here next week. All right. Thanks so much. Bye.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.